If we have nothing else in this life, we, the Locked In crew, have one thing right now: bragging rights. We picked both college football playoff games to a T, and we couldn't be happier for having done so. Unfortunately, those picks are so Monday. So let's move to the next round. Welcome to the first in a series of episodes on the national championship game between the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines, here on Locked In, your source for modern football intelligence. I am the coach, Dr. Jeremy Locke, and I am joined today by my co-hosts, legendary Logan Revel and the original line boss, Chance Hall Rollins. Gentlemen, let's dig into this championship game one side at a time. Tonight, let's do a dive into Michigan by taking a closer look at their semifinal win over Alabama. We identified three things that we believe the Wolverines needed to do if they were going to beat the Crimson Tide. One, the defense had to learn to stop an elite running quarterback on the job, as they'd faced no one similar to Jalen Milroe all season. Two, J.J. McCarthy needed to protect the ball and make big throws against Bama's aggressive man-to-man pass defense so the Wolverines could sustain drives. Three, Blake Corum would need to be the X factor for the Wolverines in every phase of the offense. As is often the case here at Locked In, Michigan hung on to our every word and delivered each of these keys to the victory. So let's start with some quick first impressions of the Wolverines in the semifinals and maybe beyond. Name one thing that impressed you about the Michigan football team. Either one of y'all, just go ahead and jump in.
I think one thing that surprised the whole country is how well Michigan's defense is. And the main thing with that was they had 5 sacks in the first half of that game, which no one thought would happen because everybody wanted to talk all year about how great Alabama's offensive line was. So I think that's one of the key things with that game is there's 6 total sacks, and nobody really expected to see that coming just because nobody had much stock in the Big Ten or Michigan being good at all on defense.
To
I agree.
piggyback, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rev.
To piggyback on the defensive point, and just to pinpoint something, Jalen Miller had 116 yards passing over that entire game and overtime. We had pointed out in our breakdown how good their defensive backfield was, how much they communicate, how well they play team defense, and they're always good with their zones, their responsibilities, and the man that they cover. And it was just, exemplified in that game to see. I mean, Jalen Miro is not heralded as the best passer of all time, but he has been doing better in that regard. And a lot of media outlets were propping him up that he is really throwing the ball really well, and I just didn't trust that from him, and that was proven correct. A combination of him missing throws, but also a great job by Michigan's defense. And then just as another aside and an add-on the other side of the ball, it wasn't necessarily his beginning play that impressed me. In fact, he was making mistakes early on that were a little bit out of character for him, or I guess you could say, depending on the J.J. McCarthy you were going to get, was be out of character. But I was really impressed with his ability to get back to what we were expecting from him, which was making those throws in tight windows and making good decisions. He started off really rocky. It was about 6 inches, less than 6 inches to throwing a pick to begin the game. And then just had some very uncharacteristic play and just not great decisions from him. But he locked in, no pun intended, as he continued in the game. And then when it came down to it, especially that last drive of the game, he did everything he needed to do to get them in a position to win. And ultimately they did. And that was very impressive to see him bounce back after a rocky start.
One thing I'll add before we move further is I've been on the Michigan bandwagon for a couple of years now. I've been waiting for them to finally break out. And the argument that I would make is I think we would have seen a different team last year against TCU if Blake Corum had played. I really thought he made that big of a difference, or he would make that big of a difference. And when he got on a big stage, he was going to show out. The thing I did not expect from him, though, was how big of a part he was in the Wolverine passing game. And so I think that we got to see them really with full staff the other day, and everything that's been said, how J.J. McCarthy recovered from his early rough play, to how the defense just showed out, to Blake Corum really being the person who pushed him over the top. I think we saw a pretty complete game out of the Wolverines. Could it have been better? Yeah, it could have in a couple of ways, but nevertheless, they got the job done that they've been waiting to do for quite some time. So let's jump to the film. Where do we want to start first, Chance?
We're going to start with the one portion of the game that Michigan lost in. So they won 2 out of the 3 aspects of the game. They won on offense, they won on defense, but they lost on special teams. They flat out lost, and that is what kept Alabama in the game. So they had 3 major plays out on the ball. He doesn't really get under it, tries to catch it more with his hands, and turns out to be a turnover. Alabama gets the ball back, and they get the ball back within the 40-yard line. So, I mean, they start with great field position, and then they go down and event a field goal. Just a bad snap costed them a whole point. If they have this, the game is 21-20. Michigan wins, no OT. No chance to lose that game. So all it is a bad snap, and they ran the ball out of the end zone. But that could have been very bad to end the game and would have been terrible for Michigan and all their players. So that is the big aspect that kept Alabama in the game, is Michigan not executing on special teams pretty much.
They are a foot away from
here.
losing this game.
Yeah. What's his luck?
I got a question for you here. This is something that from I understand both sides of this argument. But the thing that I was just, knock this team's chances in the head. Likewise, the same. I understand where that the first punt returner is coming from. He's a young player, freshman, I believe, and he sees a big play happening right here. But I'll tell you the truth, problem you run into with these catches that you have to run down, and you will have a full head of steam with it, but you also have to catch it away from your body. And if you look at his hands, he doesn't have his elbows close where he can secure the punt. So this is a pure hand catch. And almost every time that you basket catch a punt, you're going to fumble it. And my thing is, what's the worst that could happen if that ball bounces at the 38-yard line and rolls 10 yards?
You get the
start at the 28.
Get the ball, not
Yes.
Alabama. You get the ball.
That's exactly it. And I think that honestly, with the way that Michigan came out, because they seemed jittery, I think even there, you tell him, look, if that ball doesn't come directly to you, don't be a hero. Like, we cannot afford it. And honestly, they dodged the bullet. As Chance says a lot of times, it's as if the hand of God came down on the Michigan Wolverines and preserved their life in that early first quarter. But yeah, special teams definitely was a failure all the way around, I think, for Michigan. So where do we go to next?
I just want to add, there's a time and place for heroics on special teams, especially if your offense is being stifled and you're not generating, any yards or any movement on that side of the ball. And if you just need some kind of spark because you feel like your team is dead in the water, that would be the moment where, as a returner or as a team, devising something that you want to do something on special teams to give a spark to your team, to have a game-changing play. 12 minutes at the first quarter, not the time to do so. It's just not. Like you were talking about, the worst that can happen is you're going to get the ball on the 20, 25, 28. So just a time and a place, and you got to know where you're at. And just like this one, this is 52 seconds left in the fourth. You have momentum. To me, you have momentum here. You lost it for a little bit. You've gained it back. You had the game-tying drive. You don't need heroics. Go to overtime and win the football game. You have the advantage in overtime. Use it. So both of these that we see, very beginning of the game, very end of the game, just wrong place for something like this. There's just no reason for it.
Yeah,
I have no doubt Michigan will address it. I mean, you have to.
Yes.
Yeah, same on the flip side of that semifinal game. I'm pretty sure Washington will too. But from here, we go into the offensive side of the ball. We have some plays from Michigan on offense.
Works out. Reminds me a lot of the Chip Kelly screen game when he was at Oregon. And I say this because number 44, who is clearly a fullback type, is coming in motion across the field. And it just seems like that they're taking him out there to the flat. But here's the deal. If you see a guy who is built like 44 going out there, he's going to block a man. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's what I like so much about this. This just basically looks like the wide receiver runs, like kind of a slant crack into the safety who's coming down. But watch what happens. On the perimeter, Michigan runs pin and pull blocking. we pin the safety inside, the receiver does. Number 44 is going to go out, and he's the pull man who is going to block the corner on the perimeter. And you set up one of the best backs in the nation on an early carry to pick up a huge, huge gain on the second down.
Yeah,
Untouched. What a run.
and Blake Corum did it all night. He had some great runs, and they had some good schemes, especially in their run game. And you even see the false pulls over here on the opposite side of the line to get them linebackers flowing down with them. So I mean, it was pretty nice play drawn up by Michigan, and I think you'll see a lot of them running the ball in the national championship game.
And just from alignment's sake, you have two extra blockers on the right side of the field here. The defense is the left, so they're going to have to account for that. They can't just not put guys on extra bodies on that side of the line. So just by doing that and the manner of this play, you are getting defenders outside of being able to make this play on the other side of the field. So great play design. Great formation to get the defense away from where you're wanting to run the ball. This hinges on the receiver making his block and 44 making his block. They do their job, and running back does the rest. This is a great job all around. It's fantastic play. It was one of their opening plays in their second drive of the game. Great job.
Now, I'll tell you a theme right here before we move on. I think that if we put it into really specific terms, what Michigan probably had in their offensive meetings for this game is they said, no matter what we want to think of ourselves and our schemes, Alabama has more talent than we do, and Alabama does have more talent than them. So what they needed to do was to scheme plays that would give them man-on-a-man blocking advantages. And if they could make all things be equal, they thought that Blake Corum was going to be enough of a stud that he could make the difference. And their game plan, I think, worked out perfectly. The last thing I'll say is when you see these elite teams, one of the things that they try to do a lot, they run what I call split field runs. And what I mean is like with these false pulls and a false, I guess, really a false heavy strength, we could say even, they want to pull the run strength far away from where the ball's going and have a man-on-man blocking system set up on the other side so that they can have an honest chance to run the football against these really, really good defenses. So this is a brilliant play.
Yeah, speaking of that, before you run the play, stop it right there. You'll see them have a bunch on the top of the field right here, and then you'll see them send number 1 in motion across the field. But the main thing I want to point out with this play is it's 4th and 1, and look at this A gap right here. No one in it. No one in that A gap at all. So you get the man in motion. You'll see one run up, and then you'll see, I think it's their outside back right here bump over a little bit, along with 3. So with that motion, you get some steps by your linebackers going with the motion. And then after that, you'll see them attack this A gap right off the right side of that center. And I mean, it's wide open, so why not attack it, especially on 4th and 1?
I'll tell you the truth too, Chance. If you look at how tightly bunched the Michigan offensive line is, I mean, we know what they're going to run because it's what we run. They're going to wedge it to the bubble is exactly what Michigan's going to do, and it's what they do here. But what really gets me is how bunched down they are. Those guys are essentially in 2-3 techniques and giving them the middle of the field. Insanity. Yeah. Man, look at that wedge. Look at that wedge.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting, that's like the Philadelphia Eagles getting 4 yards on a tush push, a QB sneak. I mean, you get 5 yards on a wedge. That's crazy.
And I want you to look at the man just to the left of the
77
defensive line.
Oh.
Scoot over, yeah. Watch what happens to that defensive tackle right here.
I was going to bring this up if you didn't. Good gracious, what a come off the ball. Bam.
Son, the Tide just got tided. That ain't even a word.
The Tide got rolled, as you would say.
Oh my gosh, he stunned him.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan has a good O-line. We knew coming into this game that a big key aspect would be their run game.
I do also want to point out I was wrong in saying a second ago, this was their first drive because they stopped Alabama, then they turned the ball over, and then Alabama scored. So this is their first drive. We saw that great run play a second ago. And then here you got 4th and 1. Jim Harbaugh, it's not a massive decision necessarily because you are on, you're in no man's land. You're across, the opponent 40. So I get going for it here, but there is an awareness level that you need. You need points. You need to answer. You need to show that you're going to have a sustained drive. You trust your defense because they had a great stop to begin the game, and then Alabama was given fantastic field position on their next possessions. That's where they scored. So you trust your defense here. You're showing also not only that you trust them, but you trust your offense to be able to make these kinds of plays. 4th and 1, to be very aggressive. I just really like the decision. I like the whole thing, the trust in the offense, the trust in your offensive line that they're going to be able to bully ball for a yard. So that's just a little extra caveat that I really like that Jim Harbaugh made this decision to do on his first drive.
Yeah, and he did it multiple times in the Ohio State game.
One last thing real quick, and you don't even have to go back to it. That 4th down play, guarantee you that there was somebody up there in the booth, and Harbaugh or whoever's calling their plays in that particular instance, Harbaugh would have called that one, no doubt, as a head coach. He's going to take 4th down. I guarantee you 4th down, nevertheless, they send a man in motion out of that tight bunch. And somebody said, boys, tell me what they're doing with that tight bunch. Because if you want a clinic and how to whip a team like a dog with a tight bunch formation trips, Michigan Wolverines beat Alabama like a dog, and they had no answer to that formation all night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the first times that you saw it. Yeah, it got the yardage, but I also think that was a really good time to test and see how Michigan or how Alabama was going to react to that formation.
I agree.
So let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, and right here we'll have J.J. McCarthy just doing what he does as we showed against Ohio State, and that's extending plays on his feet and making a perfect throw. So we get a better view right here. You'll see the linebacker right here running that man coverage with their running back, and they targeted Alabama's linebacker all night long. You got man with 2 over top, and you just see this running back just cut up on this linebacker. The linebacker gets lost in the sauce and falls down while JJ rolls out and makes a perfect, beautiful pass. So, I mean, it's very commendable. They beat Alabama's men, which beat Georgia. And we talked about that going into this game.
And what a great job right here. The thing that really extends this even as much as McCarthy, is he converts that shoot right into a wheel. And man, it's so easy to make a man look stupid whenever you make that move.
Oh yeah, and I worry about so you'll see this a lot because Washington also runs man coverage a lot. And we'll get to it in the Texas game, but their linebackers were targeted as well.
Here's that tight bunch again.
Yeah, here's that tight bunch top of the screen, and you'll see Blake just zip out of the backfield, untouched, and they're running man. Say they did most of the game.
No, it's what they do, and the thing of it is Alabama. They are so aggressive in the man coverage. All the Southern defenses are. They're very
if you
aggressive.
Let it play, Rev, I think it goes to a better view.
Okay.
And the thing of it is, how do you stop that exactly? That's because what this is something that Chance has said throughout this bowl season is that mesh concept. Now, we don't necessarily mean like air raid mesh. We're just talking about if we can get crossers in the middle. Mm-hmm. It is the best man beater in the world. And so what happens is that Alabama is trained to know that is the poison, and they know how to handle mesh. They're trained. I mean, it's just one of those deals. They know how to handle mesh because people run it at them. But what they were not ready for, most times people will run that running back on a wheel. And so they are used to seeing a running back go flat through the backfield, out into the flat, and then curl up the sideline. What they are not used to is seeing him run through that, because this is the gap usually that quarterbacks will end up scrambling through. They take advantage of that natural scrambling gap, pour them through there, and you couldn't be more wide open. I don't think you could devise a better play right there for that moment.
Yeah, and you just see so much chaos in the middle of the field right here. Say all 3 Alabama guys in the middle there just get tangled, and Blake Corum just slips in. And I mean, honestly, you have this wide receiver at the bottom. He's also wide open.
Yes,
so, I mean, they have 2 options because of the chaos in the middle of the field with them crossers.
I think the
So
genius of this, though, throwing it to Corum, is if you look at it, Alabama's that closest linebacker, the one on the 5-yard line. He's doing something that you don't think about people doing, but brilliant teams do this. He's going to just stay in his spot, and what happens is that wide receiver is going to have to adjust his path. So I can see why you want Corum right there, because he is going to be wide open quicker than that receiver. But even we see now that linebacker, he kind of goes back. And so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 6 Crimson Tide defenders right there that I
Yep.
see?
6.
Yeah.
Or is it 7? 6 or 7? All of them in one wad. There is no hope of getting to this football. No hope.
So yeah,
What a play.
Michigan came out and they beat the man coverage. They had a very good mesh concepts. And that's what this is right here. It's just a little mesh concept. And say that's one of the best man beaters. We talked about it before the game going into it, and they do a very good job beating man. They have all year, especially against Ohio State, which has a tremendous defense.
I think one thing that would have helped them out, obviously, it would have resulted in only a 3-man rush, but this end, having all these guys released by him, you would have maybe liked to see him drop back a bit. Now in this one, he wouldn't necessarily been super effective because Corum does kind of get a little bit deeper than where he would have dropped to, but he still could have been in the path and made this a little bit of a harder throw to make. And then on top of it, your safety here needs to take over number 1, and your corner needs to stay where he's at. Because if your corner stays out, then he's able to make a play here, and your safety can take over number 1. That doesn't happen. Your linebackers here, they're looking for help on that outside. There is none because they're going with their guys. This is something that we talked about with the Washington film, I believe, and I think we mentioned it with Michigan as well, is pre-snap communication for the defense. Both defenses are very, very good about their pre-snap stuff, so everybody knows what they're doing. Alabama's linebackers are looking for help that isn't there. And if they had you see this bunch, some of the stuff that you're going to get, not all of it, but some of the stuff you're going to get. And you would have liked to see them have a little bit more conversation pre-snap. Hey, what happens if this? And that's something you go over in film. That's something you go over in practice, and then you have a call or multiple words that the defense has for calls on the field that says, "Hey, watch for this, watch for this." And your linebackers do this in the middle of a play. There's nobody there to assist help, and it's just a great play by Michigan. There are a couple of things that Bama could have done to make this a little bit of a harder play, but even then, if McCarthy makes a good throw, which he does here, it's still going to be hard to defend. It's just a good play.
Roll this one back to the beginning. I want y'all to watch the offensive line's reaction to the defensive line, especially on the left side. Watch how they block this twist stunt. So the guard rides. The tackle is just watching the end. It's pretty obvious what he's going to do. Passes him off.
Saying even 73 gets him off. And 73 even gets a hand on before he gets passed off.
That's really good blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they just take them inside and run them up the field. So yeah, that's especially with how. Go ahead.
We'll see it later with the failures of Alabama's offensive line, but just something I throw out there for anybody listening who's interested in playing offensive line or teaching offensive line. When that pass rusher comes inside of you, the objective is keep them all outside. Always keep them outside so you can form the pocket. But if you have somebody who goes rogue, you do what that Michigan guard does. Wash him flat down the line of scrimmage to the opposite side. Don't try to stand there and pass block him and adjust to him. That's what they want to see you do. Wash him all the way down, flat down the line of scrimmage, and you will open up a lane for your quarterback to step up in like McCarthy does here and make that completion.
All right, moving on to the next play. We'll see J.J. McCarthy make a great throw to his tight end in between 3 people. So we talked about him being able to bullet passes but going into this game, and here you just see him do it again. He's got a linebacker right here. There's a safety over top, and you got a man with the outside receiver right here, and you'll just see 18 slipping behind this backer on the sticks too. You'll see that it's 2nd and 8. They run the tight end to the sticks, 1 yard past him, and he just kind of settles in space and catches the ball for a first down. So that's one thing with Michigan, whether it be defense, offense, they always know where the sticks are and they play to the sticks. Whether
Well
it's when they,
coached.
yeah, I was saying whether it's when they drop into coverage and pass off receivers, or even just run routes, you'll see them play to the sticks a lot, and it's very smart football, and it's hard to teach and hard to get through, but Michigan does it well.
2 quick things I want to say on that one. This the technique that they're using here, bringing this guard across the formation, it's good to do that occasionally because it gives that end a different look. It also makes linebackers commit up front. So instead of having the same pass blocking action over and over, they actually block down and kind of kick out. They don't really kick, but he sets up for a pass block. The second thing has nothing to do with it. That referee thought his life was over. Did you see
Yes.
that man react to that pass? That's
Watch him
how
spin
fast
around.
McCarthy threw that ball in there. I
I'll
mean,
say
that was
Watch
an
him spin around here.
unbelievable pass. Yeah,
and
watch the referee.
he's throwing a heater too. I mean, that ball is
That was
coming.
yes, sir. You can tell by the way he acted, that ball was flying through the air.
Talking about that little pull, just that action causing those 2 steps for the linebackers is what vacates enough room for this throw to happen. If those guys get to drop in their regular set for their hook curl area and they drop back their normal stuff, then they are right in the way of this ball, and this play has to extend further across and is much harder to make.
Yes.
But because of that action, linebackers take 2 steps up because they see a guard pull. That's what they're taught. Take step up when you see the pull, and that vacates that little zone just enough for this ball to get there. Great job. Love the design.
You know,
Just
I'll
to
add
sell
to
it
that
even
too.
more, JJ McCarthy fakes the toss too. If you go back and watch,
Yep.
he gives the
Yeah.
toss action.
Great action.
And
So
that
what was-
also helps secure that edge, and it keeps that edge rusher from he has to play run before he can take off. So he stops and has to start, giving the passer extra time. I mean, that's a well-designed play.
So yeah, and you see concepts like this all day from Michigan that beat man. So they wasn't necessarily playing man on the tight end, but talked about it before the game. Watching film, JJ McCarthy can scramble really well, make and extend plays, and also while he's doing that, put balls on a dot. I mean, right here we see that top bunch up at the top.
That's right.
And you'll see Blake even go over
Got
there.
a quads look because of that.
Yeah, you'll even see Blake go over there, and all you see right here is 3 defenders and one. Their end, I think, is just hitting the tight end off the start, and they're really outmanned right here. Even if it's man coverage, say they're not really going to be accounting for Blake Corum out there, and it's 4th and 2. So I mean,
this is more of a 5-man. This is a stand up in outside backer type. You got 3 heavier bodies. It's 4th and 2, so that's kind of the reason for this. You got 3 heavy bodies. This is more of a true end or edge player, and this is your outside backer stand up in type. So it's a 5-man front. They're thinking that at some point, they're worried they're going to still run something in the middle, and then you have the bunch to account for too. It's a great formation, and outman like you talked about.
Before you play this, I'll say you see this bunch up here, and we've saw them run the toss. We've saw them do the action for the toss all night. So, and also this is overloaded. Like if they wanted to, they could very easily run the toss. They can pin and pull. I mean, it don't matter. They have the toss here, especially with moving Blake Corum over to this side. So I mean, you got to be thinking here. Blake Corum on a toss, easy play right here. But you'll actually see something very different, and that is Blake Corum go out untouched. And I mean, there's 3 minutes left in the game. 4th and 2. You have to have this play for Alabama. You win the game on this play pretty much. I mean, you have to have it right here on defense. And Blake Corum just gets lost in the man coverage. So nobody even go ahead.
Yeah, something that though, like if you excuse me, roll this back just a second, just to the start of the play. Now, watch this. How many of these guys are really talking? Now, obviously, the cornerback
number 3
and that walk down safety talk, but whatever they're talking about is just dumb. Because what's this cornerback? It's almost as if Alabama is set in what they're going to do. I don't think that they're considering, like what Rev said earlier. I don't think there's a conversation about, hey, watch this, think about this, they've done this, be ready for this. I don't think that's going on out there. And see, to me, that's the hallmark of a Saban defense is that, it's like it's the defense like with one central brain that they communicate, they move, they adjust. Right here, you couldn't be in worse position if you had to try to come up with a bad plan.
I was
So
saying,
I don't know what's going on that side of the ball for Alabama, but I mean honestly, this is inexcusable. And when you see Corum go to that side, I think you have to be thinking flats because they've thrown the ball to him 2 times in big situations. This guy's hot. Why does nobody go over there to help out with him? I don't understand that.
You've
Yeah.
also got that weak side. We'll call it the weak side just based on formation. The weak side toss to the left here. If you bring a puller, whether it's a tight end or a guard or this, a receiver, you probably have that again here. So you have a toss to the right just by kind of formation. And then you also can get a toss to the left just by pulling somebody over, putting somebody in motion. And then you get the pass play, which we see run. We see that happen. I just don't like you talking about where is the communication here on defense. And especially in regards to the play that we do see run, you just earlier in the game, a touchdown was scored because you did not discuss who was accountable for the running back running on a pass. And you would think just by when we watched that play, I pointed out that corner could easily have said, okay, hey, I got the furthest outside guy. So I'm responsible for this part of the field over here. Safety, take anything if it comes. If you see a post, you see a deep crosser, safety, you're going to take him. I have to stay in this zone because otherwise there is nobody over here on this whole our right side of the field. This situation, very similar here. If you watch this corner and who he goes with the receiver, and there is nobody accountable for number 2. If you had learned from your previous play that the corner needs to get out in space because that's where they're trying to put Blake Corum out in space in the outside, you're at least having a man on to either slow him down, make the tackle, or just be there to help the other defensive guys rally to it. And instead, he vacates with the receiver, just as we watched him do on the opposite side of the field earlier in the game. No adjustment has been made here. None whatsoever. So go ahead.
And when you look also just this kind of, I guess, for the front, just reiterates what you're saying. Or I guess maybe even confuses things from what you're saying to what I see with the front. The front has adjusted because they have their interior linemen, their tackles or ends, whatever you want to call them. They have them in what looks like a bear front. It might be closer to that mint front that Georgia runs, but they have got those guys at least in on the guards. And when you look at how they attack them, they're saying, by cracky, you will not run wedge on us today. Well, look at Michigan's offensive lineman's demeanor from the start. They are not running this football.
Nope.
Look at them. They are not running the football. And they sell out and send 5 men straight, into the teeth, 4 right there in the area where that wedge was run. And I'm just thinking, it's like y'all are not very in tune with what's going on right here. It's really interesting to see because you wouldn't expect to see this out of Alabama.
2 tackles hit the center.
I was to say, one thing you have to think of is Alabama ran cover 1 man all game. You see it right here. They're only safety up top. What changes right here is this linebacker goes. You're running cover 1 man with no one counting for Blake Corum.
Nope.
I mean, absolutely no one because you send 5. If you send 4, at least one person's on Blake Corum. But you send 5, nobody accounts for Blake Corum. I don't know if it's because, hey, I think they're going to run the ball, but you just can't have that. You have to have your man covered.
So another thing that I pointed out in the other play was the defensive end. If the bunch releases on pass, then he needs to not rush the passer and he needs to sit in coverage. Now, in that end on the bunch, he does not rush the passer. He does go to pass coverage, but he goes inside. And what I said earlier was if he sees that, he needs to get out in the flat. And if he sees this bunch run, okay, they're passing you. This is not a block. You got a pass set in front of you. You got guys releasing. get out to the flat. And instead he follows a man. Now I get it. You know, they're running man, whatever. This needed to be a conversation, an adjustment at halftime. You know, we're in the fourth quarter here. We have had time for an adjustment to be made where boom, hey, if you're the end here, especially because we already are rushing 4, it's not like we only have 3 coming at this point. We're running a bear. So we have 3 big guys in the middle. We have the end on the outside, and we're bringing a linebacker. If you're bringing that linebacker, the end needs to get out to the flat because there's nobody there.
Yeah. And, you know, with that, you know, and I know that, like, with you saying that, getting that outside linebacker end figure out to the flat, I think it seems foreign to a lot of people. And it's obviously foreign to Alabama right here. But one of the smartest coaches that I've ever met, he always said, he'd talk about, you know, spread teams running like stick and snag concepts where, you know, you got a high-low with the running back who swings in the backfield and the receiver downfield, and you're trying to get the read on the outside linebacker. Well, what he always said is, he said, those spread teams think they're real cute running stick and snag. He said, when you get cute back with them and you have an outside linebacker who can get out there and cover that back, he's like, the game stopped. And he's exactly right. Because if you look at the body of this man who's lined up over the tight end,
oh yeah,
he should be comfortable in coverage. And I think, like you say, because look, you already got 3 men who are committed to the pass, and you have 3 men of the bunch. You have 1 cornerback over here playing press man on the outside receiver, on the or the single receiver at the bottom of the screen, and you need your safety back deep to help these guys in man coverage. And so that end cannot get tangled up with the tight end. And honestly, if I'm betting, I bet that Michigan's plan right here, get your hands on that end, tight end. You know, go on your route, but you need to tie him up. And a lot of times, if you tie up an end over top of a tight end, he will ride that tight end down the field. And I think that they, you know, 100% know this. And man, what an open play.
Just one more time because it was so good.
Yeah, I was that's
beautiful. That's beautiful.
That really is what put them in position to go to overtime and put this game away too, is the great thing about it.
Next play.
So going to the next play, empty. I mean, full on empty. You see Blake Corum in motion, and they fake the give, and J.J. McCarthy does what we thought he would do, and that is make plays with his legs to win this game and be a star.
And if I remember correctly, is this the only keep that he had all game?
I'm pretty sure it is.
And so this was
Perfect timing.
totally unexpected. Totally unexpected.
So you see the pulls right here. You see the block back. I mean, this is beautiful. You kick, wrap, and he is gone on the outside.
Good old quarterback counter up there. And I like what this number 18, the tight end who's broken off the line. Watch him here at the end. This is a smart bunch of kids. Watch 18. Watch what he does. Block him, block him, block him, block him, block
Let's
him.
go.
Turn him loose. Turn him loose. Man, I'm telling you, that's smart.
Yeah.
Credit to 73 here. He makes this play when he pulls around because the one linebacker who is just totally not fooled is the Mike. He knows exactly what's happening. He sees the lane. Look at this guy right here. He sees this lane. He knows JJ is going to keep it. I mean, great film study, great instincts by this linebacker. He just did not expect to run into 73.
And if you look at him, something that I preach, and like, you know, and I know I've got some people that I've coached and currently coach watching this. This is a kick and wrap play. Counter is easily one of my favorites. 73, the wrapper, eyes inside, eyes inside, eyes inside is what I always tell them, because the will linebacker, in this case, the single linebacker standing there, he will make the tackle if you don't get him blocked. Watch 73. As soon as he wraps the hip of this down block, his eyes are already turned.
Dead meat.
That's it. That's how you do it. You run that 45-degree run to about 2 o'clock and then turn it up on that one right there, and you're going to have yourself a big play.
So, yeah,
Fortunately that Alabama did not get called for the hit out of bounds for slamming him down right there as well.
And the motion really helped because it pulled that other backer away from the play.
Yeah, he has to account for Blake Corum. They've been burnt too many times by him. He has to come down there and take that, because if he doesn't, he's gone.
Yeah, and that's the biggest sucker play in the world. Like a lot of times, like a lot of coaches, I've heard them call that empty. It's a special empty formation where you put the tailback out there at the or running back, whatever you want to call him. I guess I'm in I formation mode, but you put the running back out there on usually the 2-man side, and you bring him in motion, and they'll call him the Joker. And the reason that it is you got a good running back coming in motion right there.
Full
Heck,
speed.
they know what's about to happen. If you give him the football and you get him on the outside, he's going to be gone. So they have to commit, a lot of manpower to him. So here's why it's the perfect play. Those defensive linemen even have to start playing those gaps kind of to that sweep side. And when they do that, it just plays right into look at that. You down block yourself. Michigan doesn't even have to be there.
All three slant to the right.
That's what's beautiful. Yeah, that's what's beautiful. You slant to the right, and they down block to the left. Everybody's pinned behind that wall.
Perfect execution, Michigan. Hats off.
Perfect play calling. And we're going to get into this play right before the last one, I think. And that's just J.J. McCarthy again with the right with the motion, and he just sneaks right past that end. You'll see him come up. He sneaks right past. It's a perfect play. He fakes it to Blake Corum going right. One comes, the end crashes. Say there's no real way to defend this other than to communicate and know who you have.
So it's not trips bunch, but it's doubles bunch. Everybody is brought up on the line, and this is still one of those things. If you're running man, and this is kind of a interesting thing that we're a minute and a half left in the fourth quarter, and you see a similar defense with very little communication. You do have a little bit. You have the tight end has just been pointed out by the Sam, and other than that, though, there's not a whole lot of conversations going on between the DBs here, and it's a similar setup, just a slightly different formation. The whole purpose is to get everybody sucked inside. A defense does not communicate well on who's going to cover the outside, and again the corner bails because he has to in his own mind because there's no communication pre-snap, and then guess where it goes? Right where he vacates.
You'd have to think they was just scared. I mean, so scared of Blake Corum running the ball right here that they absolutely crashed inside, and you see one just slip outside of it. I mean, they crashed so hard.
But when you see that, though, and that's what I think, going back to like what you said about just perfect play calling, this is set up to be a split zone. And that's what Michigan's expecting to happen, or Alabama's expecting to happen. They expect whenever number one crosses the face of the defense right here, he is going to kick an end, and it's going to give Corum a spot to cut back. He's going to cut back right where you got all those red marks, right in between them. He's going to cut back off that block if the play is not there on the front side. I mean, that's exactly what they're thinking. And instead, what happens, and you'll see a lot of teams do this, you just slip that guy instead of making the block. He just slips on. They're not up there to contend with him. They're not going to take that block on because Blake Corum's been busting through so easy. It's a 4-yard scamper into the end zone. They say, by God, we're going to be there to meet you. And, boy, look at them. Suckers.
Yeah, 6-bit down. I mean, I don't understand what he's doing. I mean, I understand why, like, the whole play is designed to get him to be a sucker on this, but he's not going to affect this play by trying to go inside.
If you pause the play right here, you gotta think they've watched the film that we watched, and we watched them play Ohio State. And what happened? They all down blocked, and then Blake Corum took it and just made one little jab step and went right outside. So they're coming to say, hey, we're playing backside. That's not going to happen to us.
That's right.
I mean, you played yourself, boys. I mean, you watched the film and you played yourselves.
Well, even with that, though, if Blake Corum does take that jab step, 6 already went another step too far inside. So that's what I mean here. 6 just plays this terribly. I mean, he's got inside backer help behind him who really should be accounting for that, and he just look right there. That extra jump, he jumped both of his feet inside.
No, what really it is here's the line of scrimmage on this black line, this red line right here. He's 1 yard behind. If you go back to the start of the play, say, look where he is. He goes forward a little bit, and then he goes backwards. As the contained man, you have to get at least 1 yard down the field. And if you're 1 yard, if you're sitting right here, who's right there? And you just bump them. You literally just bump them, and that play is dead.
That's what I mean. He did that little extra little hop that got himself a little bit too far inside, and then there's just no recovery from that. We always talk about that one wrong step, or that, that extra step that is just in the wrong direction is going to burn you. You see it again right here.
Now, if this is just a handoff, if this is a handoff to Corum with the possibility of a backside keep to the quarterback, I want you to look how murdered every single person is. Corum, graveyard dead. 92 gets him, 15 gets him. If McCarthy keeps it, he's got 2 linebacker types ready to run him and basically meet him at the line of scrimmage. Alabama played the zone play hard, but they just played the wrong zone play. Nice.
Say, and we're in overtime here. I said, this is to win the game right here. And what do? They run 2 plays. Who do they give it to? They give it to Blake Corum. So Blake the Great, as they call him. And you see the first play gets a nice solid gain of 8 yards. You have go ahead.
This right here is this is the most Michigan play you could ever run in your life. These 2 plays you see in overtime. This is nothing but the old-timey Bo Schembechler power sweep where you take I guess more maybe a power play even here. 82 is going to come around, take that corner. Guard's going to pull, lead up through the hole. All this is old-timey power. Look at him.
Outside defense needs some work.
Yeah, that is for sure. With that being said, though, that is all we got for the Michigan offense.
Hey everyone, welcome to Locked In, the channel that brings the best college football intel to the modern fan. We appreciate all of you who've watched our channel and would love for you to become part of the channel by clicking the subscribe button. This will help us become more visible on YouTube and help us achieve our goal of raising football IQs everywhere through in-depth analysis in plain English. Thanks everyone. Stay locked in.